Hi, my name is Rosie Halsted. I am a percussionist and private music teacher based in Spokane, Washington. And today we're going to be talking about combining vocals, whether that's singing or talking, and playing percussion. This is an area of focus that I am super interested in. My primary focus is actually being a vibraphonist singer-songwriter, so I use the vibraphone much like a guitar player or a piano player would when they're writing songs. But I've also played a lot of classical pieces and new music works that combine voice and percussion in some way. I hope to give you some tips and tricks to kind of make that process of combining those things feel a little less difficult, hopefully, or maybe just inspire you to try playing a piece that combines voice and percussion. So let's get started. This can be really daunting. It's kind of the ultimate multitasking, right? There's a lot going on. And so the question I get most of the time about combining your voice and percussion isn't so much about details, but it's more just like, how do I start? How do I get into it? And I know that this doesn't seem like a very helpful tip, but I honestly think it's one of the most important ones, is to just try it. Just try doing anything, playing and talking or singing at the same time, because we're not going to know if we're good at it until we try something. The example I always give, if we want to be able to do this, rub our stomach and pat our head at the same time, we're not going to go and try to find all the lesson books and all the teachers before we even try it. We're just going to see if we can do it first and then go from there. And here's an easy way to get started. So pick two notes. I'm going to pick E and G sharp. And I'm just going to start playing them, just like a quarter note pulse. And then I'm going to keep talking. So I'm going to keep talking while I'm playing, and I'm just going to see if I can maintain anything like a steady pulse while I am also talking, right? So it's showing myself that I can maintain a pulse and then do something completely different with my brain and my voice. We can start to make this a little more complicated. Maybe I switch to a chord and I'm going to do just a permutation. So I have to think a little bit more about this, right? I'm using all four of my mallets now. And now I'm going to start switching to a different chord. I'm going to do 2 times on each and see if I can maintain something while I'm doing it. Oh, and I already messed up doing 2 of each because I'm thinking so hard about trying to talk at the same time. So that's just a really easy way to get started. You could try to have a conversation with a friend. You could try just saying the same sentence over and over. You could try reading something from a book. And notice how I started with just 2 notes and keeping a pulse. One thing that I think is really tricky for us is that we've been playing percussion for such a long time. And then when we introduce our voice, we are also often looking at music that is at a really high level. And sometimes we have to pare it way back to start piecing those things together so that we get that foundation and then we can build from there. And it's kind of an exponential growth curve if you do it that way, but we just have to have patience that that's going to happen. Okay, so you've tried putting your voice and percussion together, and now we're going to talk about playing pre-written music, pre-composed music that is written specifically for percussion and voice. I'm saying pre-written, pre-composed because a lot of the work that I do as a vibraphonist and singer is actually playing from a chord sheet or writing my own parts, and again using it as a singer-songwriter instrument, so just figuring it out as I go. But I think finding a pre-written thing is a really great introduction to combining your voice and percussion, because you don't have to think about what it is you're playing, you just have to try and play it. My recommendations for when you're looking for a piece is, 1, my bet is if you're here, you've already heard some percussion and voice pieces that you really like. And if you're really interested in eventually playing them, even if you're not sure you're quite ready for that piece yet, I would just recommend you go ahead and buy a copy of it and take a look at it, because you might be surprised that it actually doesn't look quite as complicated as you thought it might look. And really, at the end of the day, this is just a different kind of multi-percussion piece. Instead of having a vibraphone and a bunch of drums, we have a vibraphone and our voice. It's really the same layout. We're just using an instrument that's probably quite new to us. One other piece of information you can think about is do I want to speak while I play, or do I want to sing while I play, right? Because there are a lot of pieces that have both in them, but some are just singing and some are just speaking while you play. If you are really nervous about singing, totally go for a speaking piece while you play. That is a great introduction to combining your voice and using it as an instrument while you play percussion, because we don't have to worry about the pitch element quite yet. So it's kind of a nice stepping stone. But if you're really comfortable with singing, or you just love singing or love the idea of singing and playing percussion, go ahead and try grabbing a piece that is made for singing and percussion. All right, so you've got a piece of music and now you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh my gosh, where do I start? So I'm just gonna go through one phrase of a song that I really like. The piece that I'm gonna work with today is called Bird's Eye View. It's by Ivan Trevino, and it's from his Songbook Volume 2, which is actually all music for mallet and voice, and it is a great starting point. These are really pretty songs that aren't too long. They're also in 2 different keys and 2 different ranges, which is really helpful if you're not really sure where your voice sits. These are written for marimba and singing, but I am most comfortable on vibraphone, and so I'm just going to be adapting the part for vibraphone today. It's all the same notes, I'm just playing it in a different octave or range to make it work for the vibraphone. The first thing that I'm gonna do when I am looking at a piece of music for percussion and for voice is, instead of just trying to do everything all at once, I'm gonna start by learning my percussion part, or my mallet part in this case. And that's because no matter what you're doing, whether you're singing or speaking, if you are playing and singing, singing is always going to take the focus of the audience, no matter what. And I think that just makes sense, right? We're used to talking to each other. Language and words are very important to us, obviously. So people's brains are gonna latch onto that, which means that our percussion part needs to be so solid, because it's really the foundation for whatever our voice is doing. So I'm just gonna play through this part. Again, I'm only using 3 measures today for this presentation. So this is what this part sounds like. Right? We just have some nice permutations of some chords, just 16th notes the whole time. And obviously if I was learning this for the very first time, I'd be doing it much slower, checking all of my notes, right? But I have played this before. For the interest of the time, we're gonna keep moving through that. So I'm feeling pretty comfortable with my mallet part. I'm sure when I start putting the vocals with it, something will come up that I'm not that comfortable with. But for now, I've got it. So now I'm going to start learning the vocal part. And I'm looking at it, and the vocal part has some fairly intricate 16th note patterns, right? It's not just like the same rhythm over and over. It's got a very specific cadence to it. So what I'm going to do is, before I even try putting it in my voice, I'm just going to play it in my mallets and see what it sounds like, okay? So here we go. It sounds like this. Good. Once I start to get a sense of that, maybe I'll start humming with it while I play it. I realized as I said that, humming with it is kind of hard, so maybe I'm just making like a la sound with it. La 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 la. Once I start to kind of feel where that sits in my voice, I'm getting more comfortable with it, I'm gonna put the words with it. Curly-haired girl with a pretty smile, won't you smile for me? All right, sounding good. Now I'm just gonna try singing it without the mallet part and see how that feels. So this is my starting note, and I'm also going to give myself a steady beat in my body because I want to start practicing feeling that pulse in my body, right? while I am making sound with my vocal cords, because it is really hard to feel rhythm in our vocal cords, right? We're not getting that same feedback we get from when we hit an instrument and can feel the rhythm. So I need to put the rhythm somewhere else so I know I'm keeping myself accountable for the rhythm. Okay. Curly-haired girl with the pretty smile, won't you smile for me? Okay, good. I'm feeling good with it. Again, I've played this piece before, and I've done a lot of singing and playing together. So that process that I went through, even though it just took a few minutes in this video, might be a much slower process for you. That could be an entire practice session to start feeling comfortable with that. And that's fine, because again, remember, most likely, if you're watching this video, you are a great percussionist. You feel really comfortable playing percussion and mallets and learning that. Our voice is kind of a new area for us. So now, I've theoretically learned my mallet part, I've learned my vocal part. I'm gonna just try putting them together, because sometimes you might be surprised what you can do, right? So this is what these parts sound like together. Curly-haired girl with the pretty smile, won't you smile for me? Okay, I missed a few notes in there, right? But pretty good overall. I'm gonna try it one more time. Curly-haired girl with the pretty smile, won't you smile for me? Okay, accuracy was a little bit better that time. And again, I've played this song before, but if you're really, really comfortable at multitasking with things, you might surprise yourself and you might realize like, oh, I can put them together pretty well. I do highly recommend, if you feel like you're nailing it, to record yourself, because you might realize that something is really off once you record yourself. It's very hard to track our mistakes when we are singing and playing, because there's just so much going on. So even if you feel like you're good at catching yourself when you're just playing percussion, might be different here. But my bet is for a lot of us that if we have learned our mallet part and we have learned our vocal part and we go to put them together, this might be what happens. Curly-haired girl with the... Things are not going together as smoothly as we thought they might. Our rhythm might be all over the place, our pitch might be all over the place, even though we know both things separately. So, what can we do to get to the next step and start putting them together? First thing I'm going to ask myself is, am I trying to learn too much at one time? Because I did this 3-bar chunk. 3 bars is not a lot, but when we are trying to multitask and do something very difficult like we're doing, 3 bars can kind of be a lot. It could literally be down to the note that we build off of this. And that can sound kind of daunting and tiring and not very fun, but also sometimes it's just what we need to do to get everything to line up. I'm gonna go down to a beat. So in that first beat, what I notice is that I'm going to really take account of what is lining up with each other, okay? And I'm going to look at it note by note within that beat. So I noticed that in my melody and my vocal line, curly-haired, it's all on the same note, so I can kind of think about just maintaining a monotone note in my voice. But I'm also noticing that my hands are doing 16th notes and my voice is doing 16th notes. The only thing that's different between those beats is I'm doing one E and a in my hands, and I'm doing one E and in my voice. So I'm going to go really slow and just focus on every note lining up with a vocal note. Curly-haired, curly-haired. Okay, now I'm going to try the whole beat, so I'm going to put that in my hands. Curly-haired, curly-haired, curly-haired. Now I'm going to focus on what I call a check-in point, right? So often I will set myself a goal note that I'm going to get to, and I'm going to stop. Even if it's feeling good, I'm going to stop there just so I know everything is lining up. So now I'm just going to get to beat 2, which is girl. So I'm going to stop at girl, even if the first beat feels great. Curly-haired girl, curly-haired girl, curly-haired girl. Okay, Okay, now I'm starting to get something that actually lines up the way it's supposed to. I can keep going with this. I notice the second beat, again, I have 2 E and A, and in my voice, I have 2 and A. So it's just that E that's going to happen in my hands, but not my voice. Otherwise, they're all together. Girl with the, girl with the, girl with the. And then I can start adding on more to that. This is truly how slow I sometimes have to work because there's a lot to account for. We can't necessarily account for all of it on the fly. If you're like, that looks awful, I don't ever want to try that. 1, that's your choice. You can go do something else in percussion. But 2, remember, just like anything else we learn, the hardest time we're going to do it is the first time. Learning your first song with percussion and voice might be really, really tricky and really time consuming. But the second time you do it, it's going to be easier. The third time you do it, it's going to be even easier. So always remember that. Because this is a really fun thing to do. It's just hard. Another thing that's great for a piece like this one, where everything has the same subdivisions, everything is 16th note subdivision based, is practicing just like saying the rhythm over your vocals over what the rhythm that your hands are doing, right? So for instance, for this first measure, I might practice going, so that here's my pattern, and I'm just going to practice the rhythm of the first bar. I'm going to do 1 E and 2 and a 3 E, 1. 1 E and 2 and a 3 E, 1. We're just focusing on that rhythmic portion so that can get ingrained into our bodies, and then we can put on the melody and the lyrics onto that. One last thing that I will mention about working with a piece of pre-written percussion and voice music is identifying whether the vocal part and the percussion part are lining up with each other, interlocking, or if the vocal part is floating on top of the percussion part or not. And so what I mean by those is, for instance, this piece, Bird's Eye View, has a lot of rhythms that line up. So a lot of the time the hands are doing constant 16th notes, and we have 16th note patterns in our voice that line up with those notes, right? We are filling in other notes in our hands as well, but we can really use that pattern as a grid for where our voice is supposed to go. Interlocking is when we don't have constant notes necessarily in our percussion part, and everything is overlapping to create a bigger composite rhythm, right? So that's really helpful to notice that the vocals are filling in the gaps of the percussion part and vice versa. And the last way that I mentioned is if the vocal is floating on top of the percussion part. So sometimes you'll have a vocal part, often it'll have a lot more longer notes. Maybe the notes will be of a different subdivision that is just kind of floating on top of the percussion part. And while they obviously still go together, they are really kind of their own entities. And I find it really helpful to identify one of those 3 ways how the vocal and the percussion part are interacting, because it just makes me think about the way I'm learning it differently. So with lining up, again, I'm using those hands as a skeleton pattern for what my voice should be doing. When it's interlocking, I'm doing a lot more practice of the 2 parts together because one has to feed off the other. And when one is floating on top of the other, I'm really working on things more like polyrhythms a lot of the times, where I'm attempting to really kind of divert one thing from the other. So that is it for my tips and tricks on combining your voice and percussion today. I hope you feel like you got some practice strategies from this video and maybe just feel a little bit more empowered to go and give it a try if it's something you're interested in. I know I didn't talk about how to play from like chord changes or anything like that today. I did write a short book that has some ideas for how to play from chord sheets and comp on mallet instruments. If that's something you're interested in, it's called Getting Gigs Outside of the Concert Hall. You can buy it from my website. Also, please feel free to reach out to me and contact me. I would be so happy to talk with any of you about combining mallets and percussion, whether that is on specific pieces or learning how to create your own parts for the music that you love. Thank you to the PAS Education Committee for having me on this channel, and enjoy the rest of the summer educational series.